I'm Jackson from Combined Pool and Spa, and today we're just going to go over some of the things that you want to do right away when you first get your hot tub delivered. Initially, it's going to come empty and not wired by an electrician, so you're going to need someone to connect it and wire it that way, and then we're going to start filling up the hot tub. When you do fill it up with these saltwater hot tubs, you want to use the portable water softener that we gave you to fill it up 3/4 of the way with that, and then the rest of the way with your hose water. When you're filling up the hot tub, you want to place the hose in the filter cartridge area. That way we don't get any air kind of like locked in behind the jets as we fill it up. Once it's wired and you flip the breakers on with water in there, factory setting will get it heating up automatically to 100 degrees. A good rule of thumb is that it'll take a degree or two an hour to finally get to max temperature, and you don't want to throw any chemicals in there until you reach about that like 80-90 degree range, just because if you throw in a bunch of salt while your hot tub's still cold, that'll just sit on the bottom. So now that your hot tub is here and full and heated up, we can start going through the initial chemicals that you need to add. Our delivery guys will take a water sample back to the store, and those results should be emailed to you. When you get those, that's a really helpful tool where you can just kind of follow the order that it says and adding your chemicals and getting your hot tub good to use. The first step is probably going to be some kind of alkalinity adjustment. So that might be adding some alkalinity increaser here. We don't have, or there is no alkalinity decreaser. So if your alkalinity ever needs to be decreased, you will use a pH decreaser like this one. Anytime you add your chemicals, especially for this initial startup, you want to pour them in through the same place that you filled up your hot tub, that filter area, while you're running your jets on high. That just allows them to circulate through faster, and then it'll say it on that sheet as well, but you want to wait 15 minutes between the different chemicals that you're adding, just to allow, like if you add too many chemicals at once into the water, you can get some cloudy water, and we're trying to avoid that, especially right away. At the bottom of your water test, it's also going to talk about how much of this chlorine concentrate you have to add to your hot tub. This is just like a Kickstarter chlorine dose. Eventually the goal is that our salt system here will maintain a residual level of chlorine. Those salt cells are really good at keeping up, but they're not great at catching up to like a chlorine demand. So we're going to use this right away, just like any other chemical, added through the filter area there while you run the jets on high. After you add your chlorine concentrate, you want to leave the cover off and run the jets for about 30 minutes, just to let everything air out and kind of clear out. So now that the water is balanced in your saltwater hot tub, we can go ahead and add in the salt. The exact amount of salt you add in is going to vary kind of depending on the exact size of your hot tub. Usually standard is we're going to start with like a 5 to 6 cups, and we're going to put this stuff in the same way that we put in the other chemicals, where we're going to open the filter area there and run the jets on high while this all goes through. Once the salt is added, your salt system should register that, and the gauge will give you a little reading on about where you're at. If you think you're a little low, you can add another cup or two, but it is significantly easier to add salt than it is to take it away. So we like to start on like the lower range there and kind of work our way up. So now that your water is balanced and you've added in your salt, it should be good to go for at least a week and good to use. Eventually though, you are going to have to start testing it on your own, and for that we're going to use these 5-way test strips here. If you look on the back of these, you can see the different chemicals that are being tested whenever you use one of these strips. You'll just take one out of the bottle, dip it in for about 2 seconds, read it against the back here. You've got your total bromine at the top. There's no bromine in these hot tubs, so you might as well cross that one off with the Sharpie. Don't worry about the bromine. Next down is your chlorine level. This is going to be the main one you're looking at most of the time. You want it to be in that kind of pinkish purple range. If you're ever low on chlorine, then you can add just a little bit of this chlorine concentrate, the same stuff we use to kickstart it off right away, is also really good at catching you back up. So if for whatever reason you maybe used your hot tub like a lot during the week and your salt system couldn't quite keep up, you can add a little chlorine on your own that way. Next down, it measures your alkalinity. Alkalinity, like I mentioned earlier, can be increased using your alkalinity increaser, and you'll decrease it using the pH decreaser right here. All the dosages for those can be found on the backs of the bottles. It's dependent on how far you need to change it and like the size of your hot tub. But we always like to say that these test strips are going to give you a reading that'll tell you if it's like way off. They're not going to tell you exactly the number of your alkalinity or your pH. It is an eyeball test. What's important is that you don't try to play mad scientist with your water and get it exactly where it needs to be. This is a lot less like a science experiment and a lot more like cooking, where the first couple times you might have measured out everything, but now you're just kind of throwing in what you know you need and figuring it out that way. Next down is your pH. That's the same thing, where the dosage is going to be on the back of the bottle, and you can add what you need that way to get it in that okay range. Okay is at 7.2 to 7.8. And lastly is your water hardness, and if you filled it up correctly using the softener, it should be in that kind of 25 to 75 range, which is good because you can't change your water hardness naturally in your hot tub, so that'll always stay about where you need it to be. So now we're going to take some time to go over what the different controls are on your hot tub here. First off, you have your light controls. To select those on some of the hot tubs, you will click on the sun icon, or you'll just click on the lights button. With the lights, you can cycle through various different colors, or like a rainbow color option. You can also decide like your light brightness that you want. The other option you have is to control your jets on your hot tub. Your jet options are going to be found either by hitting the Jets button or by hitting the Jets icon. Through that menu, you can decide what settings you want your jets to be on. You've got two jets. Jet 1 is going to be on or off, while Jet 2 is going to have an off, a low, or a high. Best way to decide how you like your jets is honestly just to kind of sit in your hot tub and experiment with what jet controls everywhere else, and you can kind of find your favorite seat that way. As far as these different diverter valves, they control how much air is going to which jet. So the more air you have coming out of jet, the deeper massage you're going to get. The most important diverter valve is one that's going to control your waterfall. The higher setting you have your jets running on, the more power you'll get behind your waterfall here. In this particular hot tub, the jet diverter valve is this one right here. So turning that up is going to activate the waterfall. You want to run that waterfall every once in a while. You don't have to like run it the whole time you're in the hot tub, or you should never have to come out in like a cold sweat in the middle of the night to turn on your waterfall and turn it back off. But every once in a while you want some water to cycle through there, and that's just because if you will have it like completely off for say like an entire season of your hot tub, you can get some stale water built up behind the jet line there, and it can be kind of gross when you do turn it on. So just make sure you run that at a trickle now and then, or some people love to use their waterfalls all the time, so they don't really have to worry about that. Here is where your salt cell is going to be. These will last you about 3 to 4 months, depending on how frequently you're using the tub and what setting you have it set out over here. We'll talk about the settings a little bit later. Right here, so to remove the salt cell, you'll take this cap off and go into your salt system settings and click remove cell. On some hot tubs, it'll be a picture of a salt cell that you're tapping on, and on others, it will be a remove cell option. So I'm going to hit that here and then hit OK. And what that does, it just turns off all the pumps. So even when your jets aren't running, this does have a 24-hour circulation going on. So if I just remove this cell without turning off the pumps first, water would start to drain out the bottom of the hot tub and kind of come out the top at the same time. And that's just a bad situation we're not looking forward to. So once it's ready, it will give you a picture and tell you to remove the cell. To do that, you'll push down on the top here, you just pull it out. This is what they look like. The plug that the hot tubs come with originally does not have these two metal plates, but the salt cells do have these plates. There's no way to tell just by looking at them if they have been depleted. You'll know they're not working anymore when it's been about that 3 to 4 month range, and maybe the hot tub is telling you like replace salt cells. Sometimes you'll just get a weird reading on your salt gauge, or if you just can't get any chlorine produced in your hot tub, you feel like you're adding every single time, and it's been about 3 to 4 months, that could be a good indication that it's time to buy a new cell. Once the hot tub has detected that you've taken your cell out, it will tell you to put a new one in. I'm just going to put this same one in for now. Again, you'll push down on that top, get it in there. It shouldn't take much force in or out, and then it'll tell you press OK to restart system after it detects that cell is in there, and it'll automatically restart the pumps and get everything going for you again. So you can just put your cap back on, and you've got your new cell. So now that your salt system is up and running and you've put in your fresh cell, we can go over what the different settings are within that. When the hot tub first detects some salt in there, it'll present you that menu, and you can then look through what the different settings do. Either at the top of your screen or with a little gauge on the left, you'll have something that measures how much salt is in your hot tub. You want to keep that in its middle green range there. When the cells do get kind of old, you can get a little of a different reading on that salt meter. So it's a good idea, if you're unsure if that reading is correct, before you start adding a bunch of salt into your water, to test it with one of these saltwater test strips. These are the smaller ones with the black cap. These are a little bit trickier to use, where you'll dip it in, take it out, and then hold it level for 20 seconds. After that 20-second mark is up, you can measure it again against the reading on the back of the bottle here, and that will tell you how much salt you have in the water. I mentioned this earlier, but it is way easier to put salt in than it is to get salt out. Removing salt from the tub, the only way to do that is to drain out water and then fill it in with your hose. So if your salt meter is ever reading really low and there's no way a bunch of salt could have left the hot tub, make sure you test it with the strip before you start adding in salt, because it could just mean your salt cell is getting kind of old and you need to replace it with a new one. The other thing on the menu is your chlorine output. That's going to be measured on a scale of 1 to 10. For these hot tubs, we generally recommend you keep it, and it depends on the size of the tub, but recommend you keep that between a 5 and an 8. If you're using the hot tub more, you can turn that up. If you don't use it very often, you can turn it down a little bit. The higher setting you have, the faster you're going to work through the salt cells, but also the more chlorine the salt system is going to produce on its own over time. You can change that just by tapping on the number on some of them, or by selecting that top right option on other hot tubs. One more option in that salt system menu is the boost function that will turn your system up to a 10 for 24 hours. That's a really good idea if you know you're going to have quite a few people in the tub, or you just had quite a few in there and you want to kind of make sure your chlorine level is looking all right. You can run your boost before, during, or after that, and that'll just turn it up to a 10 for 24 hours, and then it'll kick itself back down to the level you had it on before. Now we're going to take a second to go over filter maintenance and just how often the filters need to be replaced. So after you've taken the lid off of this, you'll have to remove your basket. These vary a little bit from hot tub to hot tub, but It'll almost always turn about an 1/8 turn to the left, and then come out all as one piece like this. Once you have it out, you can set that to the side, and underneath is your filter. Taking your filter out, they're all going to vary depending on the size of the hot tub and the exact model, but they'll all look about like this one. The filter is what catches any kind of like hair, any kind of debris going through it, lotions, oils, anything like that. And so it does need cleaning once a month. If you clean your filter once a month, your water is going to be way easier to balance. It's going to look cleaner, and you'll get more life out of the filter itself. With it being cleaned once a month, though, we still do recommend that you replace them once a year. You also need to drain and refill your water once a year. So a lot of people, when they drain and refill, is when they'll pick up a new filter. There's a couple options for cleaning it, but the hot tubs will be delivered with this filter cleaner spray here. In order to use this, you're going to want to take your filter out, like I just kind of went through, and just spray it down with some water right away. You're not going to be using like a power washer or anything like that. You're just trying to get off any like big debris that's going to come off with water. Then you're going to spray it with this cleaner spray, get it in there pretty good, and wait 15 minutes. That just gives the spray time to pull any of like the oils or any like calcium hardness off of the filter itself. Then you're going to rinse it down again with some hose water, and it's good to go back in the hot tub. I do recommend that you do that over some concrete somewhere or the rocks. Sometimes it can kill your grass a little bit if you decide to rinse your filter off over the grass. But when you put your filter back in, you can do it just like that. Most of the time they're not going to be screwed into anything down there, so you'll just keep it in place by putting the basket back on top. So, just a quick review. You want to clean your filter once a month and replace it once a year. About once a year, you're going to want to drain and refill your saltwater hot tub here. As far as draining goes, you'll just hook up a hose to the outlet. That's going to be usually on the side of your control panel there, and then just by gravity, it'll drain itself out. The chemicals that are in the water are not going to kill your grass, but dumping 300 to 400 gallons on a low spot could not be the best thing, so maybe move the hose around while you're doing it. If you have a portable sump pump, you can even use one of those. Just set it in the middle. It'll help get all that water out a little quicker for you. When you do refill it then, just the same way we did it the first time, you're going to use the water softener for about 3/4 of the way up while you fill it through the filter area, and then you'll disconnect the softener and fill it the rest of the way. After each use of your hot tub, it's a good idea to close the cover and clip it in the front. This is pretty easy to do. You're just going to want to clip these front clips shut. As far as the back clips go over here, there is no way to even open it from the back, so you don't have to worry about locking that together. In fact, if you do clip these together and try to open your cover and you forget about it, you can rip this plastic piece off. So I would always recommend just not worrying about these back clips. In fact, some people will even roll them up and tuck them under the cover like that so they don't have to worry about it anymore. So just to kind of run over everything one more time with your freshwater salt system. Once a week, you're going to come out and test your water with a test strip. That'll tell you how much you need to adjust for pH, alkalinity, and whether or not you need to add some chlorine. Once a month, then you're going to take out your filter, clean that off, and put it back in. Every 3 to 4 months, you need to swap out your salt cell. And then once a year, when you drain and refill, that's a good time to pick up your new filter.